And good afternoon and welcome. My name is Ryan Belmore, and I am the owner and publisher of What's Up Noop. We are continuing our conversations with the candidates, and today we head off to the gubernatorial race. Mr. Frank Prosnich joins me for these conversations. And how are you, Frank?
I'm doing fine. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing all right, and we are moving along here in the month of October. We're almost halfway through it already. I haven't had enough time away from this screen to realize that it's almost time to vote here.
Yeah, actually next week, October 19th, is the first day of early voting. And I would urge people, if you feel comfortable, to do it, because it's you're going to avoid a lot of lines, get through quickly, and then not have to worry about it.
And people can visit vote.ri.gov to check their, make sure they're registered, find their polling place, view their sample ballot, and a whole bunch more. We've been interviewing just about all the candidates we've talked to in most of the races, and we're at the governor's race today. And if anybody wants to check out our other interviews, our upcoming schedule, all available on whatsupnuke.com. Frank, what are we doing today here?
We're going to be talking with Elijah Gizzarelli. He is a libertarian who is running for governor, and don't know much about him, so anxious to learn about him. It's important for us to know and get to know all of the candidates, and I always believe that elections are about ideas. They should be about ideas, and that we need to listen to what all the candidates have to say, and perhaps, even if somebody is not going to win an election, they may have an idea that might be picked up by whoever does, and who knows? This is a strange year for elections, and people can come from anywhere and maybe capture the fancy of the electorate. We'll see.
That's it. And let's hear what Elijah has to say. And Elijah, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course.
So my biggest question is, what's the image behind you?
Oh, this is just the map of the world. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting map. It's
upside down.
Starry canvas with like the moon superimposed over the land masses. I don't know who thought of it. It's just kind of awesome, right?
That's pretty cool.
I hang it upside down because there's no real reason why north should be up and south should be down. So it's just a silly thing that we've just always done in society. And looking at a map upside down really makes you realize that you don't know as much about geography as you think that you do. And it's just kind of a different way of reminding myself that the world isn't always as you think it is. Sometimes it's quite a bit different.
Maybe we need to shake ourselves up and turn ourselves upside down, and things might get a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Elijah, tell us a little bit about yourself and why is this the first time that you're running for office?
It is my first time running for office. I've worked on political campaigns nationally. I was the campaign manager for a man named Adam Kokesh. He was running for president in the Libertarian Party's nomination. He did not win that nomination. Jo Jorgensen won in 2020. And then I worked on her campaign as her regional field director for the North Atlantic region. I believe it was the most populated region. It's like I was in charge of the area from New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Ohio. I think that's all of them. Yeah. So, that's like my political experience as far as that. And then I got recruited to run for governor because Rhode Island hasn't had a libertarian run for governor since 1976. And the only way for the Libertarian Party, now this is crazy, the Libertarian Party is the third largest party in the nation. In Rhode Island, the government in Rhode Island does not recognize them as a political party, right? So we have to operate as a political action committee, which really ties our hands in elections, right, in races. William Hunt out in Barrington, I believe he was running for state rep, right? He did fantastic. I think he got something like 42% in the last one. He's done better than any Republican in that district. But he was not allowed the benefits of a political party because the Libertarian Party is not considered one, right? And so it really ties our hands in a lot of ways. And the only way to become a political party here in Rhode Island is if we get either 5% in the gubernatorial race or if we get 5% in the presidential race. So Joe Jorgensen failed to get 5% in Rhode Island. So we were really looking for a governor's candidate. And, you know, I have a lot going on in my life, but eventually I just decided this needs to get done. And so I stepped up to the plate. And here I am.
Why is it important for it to become a party in Rhode Island?
Well, different things, ballot access issues, and then funding, right? So right now, for the Libertarian Party to just support me as a candidate, they have to find 4 other candidates to donate to. Otherwise, it's illegal the way it's set up. If they were a political party, we wouldn't have to jump through all these ridiculous hoops. There's so many little things that Democrats and Republicans, which, by the way, are private organizations. Democrats and Republicans are private organizations. And because they have a majority of people in office, they get to set the rules of the game. So when third parties go to compete with people, they're playing, we're competing against people who set the rules to favor themselves. So it's a real uphill battle. And this is just one of the ways. They claimed I didn't have enough valid signatures to get on the ballot. We needed 1,000 in a week. I turned in 1,300 and they said that not enough of them were valid. So we had to fight for over a month in order to get my name put back on the ballot. That wasted an entire month of campaign time. These are just the kinds of things Republicans and Democrats do to make sure that nobody can compete with them.
Elijah, what sets the Libertarian apart from the Democratic and Republican parties?
I mean, one, the Libertarian Party is actually libertarianism is a philosophy, right? Republicanism and Democratism doesn't really exist, and it changes year to year, right? Republicanism was much different before Trump, right? And now it's turned into something else, right? Democratism was much different before Obama, and now it's become something else. And so I believe that what we have here is the Libertarian Party sets itself apart because we actually stick to our principles, right? We don't care who the donors are. We don't care. It's like the Libertarian principle is that you should have control over what happens in your own life, right? You should be the ultimate decision maker. We champion personal sovereignty and consent. And the governments across the board generally do not respect individual rights. And the individual is the ultimate minority. So libertarians, we are fighting for a world where you can live your life any way that you see fit, as long as you're not harming other people.
So give me an example of how that can be applied practically.
Okay, so the perfect example of that is the drug war, which is what I'm running my campaign on primarily, right? So the drug war is an absolute ridiculous policy in government, right? One, bodily autonomy, right? So most people have good ideas about bodily autonomy on the left and the right, depending on the subject, but they never carry it all the way through. And the fact of the matter is that if somebody wants to put a substance into their own body, that's their right, right? And it doesn't matter if we agree with it, right? Like I know I look like I might do a lot of drugs because I got long hair and stuff. I promise you I don't, right? I'm a veteran. I'm the only veteran in the race. I'm pretty straight-laced. I had a top secret clearance when I was in. But the point is that it's horrible that we have people sitting at the ACI right now who have never harmed anybody, right? They just got caught with a substance that the government decided was not okay for them to have, right? And so we spend over $70,000 per inmate per year. The average Rhode Islander only makes $35,000 a year. How is it twice as expensive to be a prisoner in Rhode Island than to live the average lifestyle in Rhode Island? That's insane, right? So taxpayers are suffering. We're taking these people away from their friends, from their families. We're taking mothers and fathers away from their children. We're taking children away from their mothers and fathers. We're putting them in a taxpayer-funded facility, right? And then their families, by the way, because we're kicking people out of their jobs, their families are having to get on welfare too. So more taxpayer dollars are going out for it. This is an economic disaster and a humanitarian crisis. So we need to stop the drug war right now. We need to respect people's right to bodily autonomy. Even if we don't think it's okay to do heroin, which I don't believe that anybody should do heroin, if somebody chooses to do heroin, we need to look at this as a mental health problem and not a criminal problem. They haven't harmed anybody but themselves. So the drug war must end. That's the perfect example.
What if what if somebody actually was harming someone else?
Well, then that's a different crime, right? So,
okay.
So a lot of times you'll say like, well, what if somebody gets high and they stab somebody? I'm like, well, like stabbing people is illegal. Like, I mean, blaming the drug, it's like there are plenty of people that get high and they never harm anybody. In fact, the vast majority of drug users never harm anybody. So those I feel like are kind of straw man arguments where they're trying to make it seem like I want chaos or anything. No, like Portugal, by the way. Portugal used to be the drug capital of Europe. They had the highest addiction rates. They had the highest overdose rates in Europe. In 2001, over 20 years ago now, they legalized all drugs. And they have become a model, right? So there's no fentanyl in Portugal right now, right? Because when we take, like for instance, a couple of weeks ago, right? There was a huge drug bust in Cumberland. They got 660,000 fake Adderall pills. They got the police captured. Right? They did a big drug raid. So they took those off the streets, and people are championing this like this is an amazing thing that happened. That's not good. You know what they didn't find in those pills? Fentanyl, right? So the people in Rhode Island who use Adderall, right? They are still going to want Adderall. So that means that now there's a huge demand for drug dealers to get Adderall to Rhode Island. They're going to make a lot of money in doing so. The prices are going to go up, right? And since there's such a high demand right now because of that huge drug bust, like they're going to be cutting it with all kinds of stuff. They didn't have fentanyl in those pills. I would not be surprised if in the coming weeks we start seeing a spike in fentanyl overdoses because of that drug bust. It does not help our society to persecute this drug war. It does not help. It only hurts and destroys.
Elijah, what other issues are important to you besides drugs? I'm sure that you've thought of many others that are. We have tons of issues, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very passionate guy. I could sit and talk your ear off about issues all day. Another big one for me is like education, right? I think education's one of the most important things in society. And if you just look at the math, like that's why I've been telling people is I'm just bringing common sense to this race, right? It's common sense to end the drug war, right? And if we look at our education system, I forget who it was. One of the Democrats running against McKee in the primary, she brought up how poorly Rhode Island students test, right? I think like literacy was something like 33% of people meet the standards, students meet the standards. Math, it was like 27%. It's really, really bad numbers. Rhode Island spends some of the most money in the nation on education. And then there are some people that when we talk about the subject, they think that we're blaming teachers. Absolutely not, right? So the average teacher makes about $70,000 a year in Rhode Island. If you add up all their benefits, at very most, you could say that they make $120,000, $130,000, right? But we spend over $20,000 per year per student. So that means that if a classroom size is 20, which by the way, every teacher in Rhode Island would love to have a classroom size of only 20 students. Sure. It's probably more like the average classroom size is probably closer to 30, maybe 25, 26, right? So well, let's just say, so the math is easy, 20, right? That means that $400,000 is being paid for by taxpayers to fund one classroom of 20. And the teacher's only making $70,000 a year. Where are the other expenses, right? Are we going to say administrators? It doesn't take more than one administrator per class. It probably takes one administrator per 10 classes. How many janitors do you need for that? Not one janitor per 10, right? So at this point, where is this expense? We have $70,000 going to the teacher. We'll add up the benefits. Let's say something silly like $150,000 for the teacher salary and benefits. They're not spending the rest of the $250,000 on the building. It's a government building. They're not paying taxes on that building. It's a government building. It doesn't cost $250,000 to heat a classroom. This is insane, right? So we need to go through the budget, the way that we spend this money. We need to weed out all the waste. Like if you just do simple math, it does not add up.
Where are you on issues like affordable housing and gun control?
Well, I believe it was the math guy, not the Massachusetts guy running for governor like 10 years back. The rent is too damn high, right? And look, there's tons of ways that at the governmental level we can ease that. It gets kind of technical, but I mean, one, we need to lower property taxes, right? If your landlord is paying higher property taxes, right, that your rent's going up. Rhode Island is consistently ranked 50 out of 50 for landlords, right? Like literally, if you go to a real estate investment class and you live in Rhode Island, they literally say, do not invest in real estate in Rhode Island. It's the worst investment you can make, right? So that increases rent. When we have a lot of these laws that are restrictive for property owners, it hurts all the way down the line, right? But that's not the point, right? So Governor McKee, he likes to talk about, oh, well, we help people, we give them these vouchers, we're putting in government housing. It's like, listen, the point isn't supposed to be to make it so Rhode Islanders can afford rent. We should have more property owners, right? Like I want lower class Rhode Islanders to be able to afford a house. And that starts with the economy. It's not just about property prices, which by the way are way too high due to regulations, due to zoning. There's tons of things that could be done at the top level, but the economy is in shambles here. And during COVID, Governor Raimondo and Dan McKee as her lieutenant governor, they shut down this economy. They closed small businesses and they forced Rhode Islanders to spend millions and millions of dollars at these big box stores, big corporations. I thought Democrats were supposed to be pro lower class and anti corporations, but they closed little boutiques owned by Rhode Islanders that are in the lower rungs of society, and they made us shop at Walmart and Target. It was ridiculous. And so we're still recovering from that. If you look, there are tons of businesses closed on all main streets. That's why some of my yard signs you might see say bring back Main Street, right? So we need to get the government out of the way of small businesses, lowering corporate taxes, at least for small businesses, that certain thing, down to zero if we have to. We have to get people to start businesses, start employing locally. Small businesses benefit local Rhode Islanders through employment way better than big corporations. That's really where I would start with the inaffordability right now to live in Rhode Island.
So just to kind of get the record straight, I just quickly looked up property taxes. While Rhode Island is among the highest, it's 42nd, not 50, in terms of property taxes.
Yeah, what I said was it's ranked 50, not in property taxes. It's ranked 50 for a place to invest in rental properties. Typically, I mean, I'm sure that there'll be lists that don't have Rhode Island as 50, but I've seen it on as 50 as if you're going to invest in a rental property, don't buy it in Rhode Island. It's the worst place.
Well, I've never heard that, but we'll check it out and see what it is. But there's no question that we are a fairly high tax state.
Yeah, and it's not just the taxes. That was something I buzzed on. There are tons of regulations that really make it difficult to be a landlord in this state.
So, if elected, what would be your top 3 priorities?
Well, the number one thing I'll do day one is I will release all non-violent drug offenders from prison, right? Day one, that's going to, one, they need to be released. They've never harmed anybody. They need to be sent home with a heartfelt apology, right? It will save taxpayers tons of money, right? we're paying 70,000, over 70,000. The exact numbers are very difficult to find. I dare you to look up any kind of budget items in Rhode Island, or it's absolutely impossible to find on the web. So transparency will be a big thing because taxpayers deserve to know. If you want to look up what the budget's doing, you should be able to find a clear pie chart, at least something that lets you know where your tax dollars are going, right? But yeah, the day one, I'm going to end the drug war, right? I'm going to make sure that nobody is being persecuted in Rhode Island for what they choose to do with their own body, right? This is a human rights issue, and it's an economic issue because we spend so much money persecuting this drug war, and it doesn't help anybody. It only hurts and destroys. And then I want to get the economy going. I want to get government regulations out of business owners' hairs. I want to get rid of some of these occupational licenses. There's no reason why a low-income entrepreneur has to go get a cosmetology license to open up a barbershop. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that we have these barriers to entry for so many of these jobs. It's crazy. So that's what I would really want to do. I want to make sure that the economy never closes again. I want to get Main Streets back up and running. I want to encourage people to start opening up small businesses, hiring locally, and that's my main issues.
So that barbershop that you would not have regulations for them to open, would you have regulations that they have to achieve in terms of health and safety and cleanliness?
Look, a barbershop that's not clean, right? People aren't going to go there, and there's no real inspections going on. It's a racket, right? It's a racket. People have to go and get a license so that government can take their money periodically, right? So no, I'm not worried about it. If you go into a barbershop and it's not clean and it's not run well, leave and go to the next barbershop. We don't need the government to be solving these problems for us.
Elijah, let's learn a little bit more about you. Your education, your jobs that you've had. I know that you're a veteran, which we have. But tell us more about who you are.
Yeah, so I was born and raised right here in Rhode Island. I graduated from Cranston West. Go Falcons! And after high school, I went to CCRI for a couple of years. I was the manager at the Subway at the Warwick Mall. My first job, though, was actually Ocean Pride Seafood on Atwood Ave. And then I joined the Army at the age of 20. I just wanted, why I joined the Army was because, I knew, people were getting deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. I joined in 2007. It was the height of the Iraqi war. We were losing tons of people. They were desperate for new soldiers, and I just wanted to go. I believe that if you weren't willing to fight for your freedom, then you didn't deserve it. So I wanted to go. I wanted to serve my community. I wanted to get deployed, and that's why I joined. But then while I was signing up, I heard about this cool language school in California that teaches you languages, to be fluent in languages in a short period of time. And I was super excited. So I took a test, passed that test, and I went to Monterey, California. So instead of signing up for 2 or 3 years and just getting deployed and getting out, I had a 5-year contract. I learned Arabic and French at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. And I got stationed in Germany for 3 years. I did counterterrorism operations and as a translator. And then after the Army, while I was in the Army, I kind of started getting politically involved. And so after I got out of the Army, I did door-to-door sales for 3 years, right here in Rhode Island, going business to business. If you own a business in Rhode Island, you've probably seen me walk through your door. I've been to just about all of them. And trying to get you to switch your phone lines to Verizon. And and then after that, I just got into home renovations, right? So it's always been something I've always liked to tinker around, fix things and stuff. I started working for this guy I actually met at the sales job, and he like really trained me to do all kinds of things. So now I do home renovations. I work for a property investor. He buys a property, I go in, I fix it, and then he sells it. So.
What are other things you might want to add? Might want people to know about you, and also, we know it's a steep road to get elected from where you're at, but it sounds like your goal really is to gain at least 5% of the vote.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is like, look, I have no delusions about my chances of winning this race. I know it's going to be uphill. Like I've already said earlier, Republicans and Democrats, they make the rules and they don't play fair, right? Tonight, I'm going to be in the debate, right? And this is a perfect example of how they don't play fair. So they're going to have, for the first hour, they're going to have Callis versus McKee on the stage. And then after they're finished, they're going to get off the stage, and then the 3 independents are going to go on the stage. It's completely unfair to do it like that.
I totally agree with that.
It's ridiculous. And I was first invited, and they didn't mention that. And then a week later, they were like, oh, by the way, this is how it's going to happen, right? Yeah. And so it's these kinds of things we have to deal with. And honestly, it's sad, right? Because we really want to criticize this debate for doing it, but they're the only one of the debates that even invited the third parties, right? So that's the uphill battle that we're facing, right? And with that said, I know I would do a better job as governor than both Callis and McKee. The problem is that Democrats are going to vote for McKee, even though they don't like him, right? I mean, he only got 33% in his primary, because they're worried that if they don't vote for him, Callis is going to win. And then Republicans don't even really like Callis, but they're going to vote for Callis because they just don't want McKee to be governor anymore. If everybody just chose, if they got to sit down with each candidate and chose who they thought would be the best governor, I bet you I would win that race. But that's not the game we're playing. Yeah. And it's unfortunate that in this country, that's not how elections are run, right?
So tonight, you're not going to have an opportunity to face off against Callis or McKee to demonstrate what differentiates you from both of them. So in a capsule, what does differentiate you from both Callis and from Governor McKee?
I mean, in a phrase, common sense. But outside of that, I mean, look, I've seen a lot of corruption running in the state, and it's hard to prove. I'm not going to like sit here and be like, you're under FBI investigation or anything like that, right? But come on, Rhode Islanders. You look around, you see the corruption in the state, you see teachers' pensions being sold to Raimundo's friends. It's been a long time, right? It's been a long time where people are getting paid. Everybody knows that. I'm not one of those people. Callis, right? She claims to be against corruption. Like, she just made millions and millions of Rhode Island taxpayer dollars, right? Off of COVID-19 testing, off of a sweetheart government contract, which, by the way, there's like a legal issue going on with that, right? I don't trust Callis to not be corrupt. I think she's going to be more like Trump, where he said he was going to drain the swamp, but then just put his own swamp monsters in place, right? Like Mar-a-Lago, all these places, they made millions and millions and millions of dollars off of Trump visiting or whatever. Like there was so much corruption under the Trump presidency. I just feel like that's what we're going to see. She doesn't want McKee's friends getting paid. She wants her friends getting paid. And so I really think that we need to stand up to corruption. We need to vote for the person who has the most sense. Rhode Island needs a fighter, right? I'm the only veteran in the race. And so I honestly believe that I mean, there's so much I'm different on. I'm different on whether or not the government should run your life, right? McKee obviously believes that. And every time I hear Callis open her mouth, she's talking about some other government program she can start or some other program that needs more taxpayer dollars. I'm not seeing anybody saying, listen, the government has its role, but it shouldn't be so much involved in Rhode Islanders' life. I'm not seeing that from anybody but me. So that's really where I differentiate.
And I guess your message to people is that even if they don't think you are going to win this election, to vote their conscience, so that in fact the Libertarian Party can be more significant as we move forward and have more recognition in the state.
Exactly. And by the way, guys, like, look, some people are worried that they might waste their vote. And it's like, no, like, listen, Callis cannot win this election. She cannot win. 20,000 people voted in the Republican primary. 110,000 people voted in the Democratic primary, right? Like, she cannot win this race. I mean, she can pretend and she can spend all of the taxpayer money that she's earned over the past few years on that, but it's not going to change anything. I guarantee you, she doesn't break 35% on the best day, right? And so what are you really voting for, right? Like, if you're actually, like, libertarians and Republicans, we agree a lot on things. Oh, and by the way, we didn't touch on a couple of things. As governor, I will never make rape illegal. Not rape, I'm sorry. That was terrible. As governor, I will never make abortion illegal, right?
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's about rape or whatever. It's nobody should be forcing a woman to come to term, right? And even though I'm pro-life, I just don't believe that it's viable to force a woman to come to term. It should never be made illegal, right? But on top of that, right? It's like, what was the other one I wanted to talk about? I forgot. I had two things that popped up. That oh yeah, gun rights. I will protect your gun rights, right? Callis keeps doing this line. We don't need any more laws. Rhode Island has too many gun laws, right? We shouldn't have those, and I will fight to make sure that those get repealed as much as I can as governor. The right to defend yourself is a civil right. It's non-negotiable, right? And if you actually look at the history of gun control, it's founded in racism. The first licenses for guns started after freed slaves started buying guns, right? Some of the more recent gun laws started because the Black Panthers had guns, right? Like, so it's not something that's founded in any kind of liberty or freedom. It's not like some Democrats have this idea that like gun control is to protect people. No, gun control is to control people. And minorities are the most likely to be victims of violent crimes, and they have the right to defend themselves just like anybody else.
Would you have any restrictions on the type of guns allowed?
I mean, no, not really. I mean, I don't think you should have nukes. I mean, I don't know. Like, look, the whole idea, like the assault rifles ban, one, there's no such thing as an assault rifle. There's no like clear definition of an assault rifle, right? AR does not stand for assault rifle. It's actually a civilian version of the M16, the AR-15. And so, no, I mean, look, guys, I don't know how many deaths. I looked up the stat like towards the beginning of the campaign, but there have been almost no deaths due to rifles in Rhode Island. So how is banning assault rifles going to make Rhode Island any safer? It's not, right? It's just going to limit people in ways that they can defend themselves. And that's it. And it's not something that magazines. Magazine is a piece of plastic in a spring. How are you going to ban pieces of plastic in springs? You can make one like very easily. It's not something that should even be talked about. It's not the role of government to decide. In the Constitution, it says shall not be infringed, and it shouldn't be infringed.
So one of the things that we do have in Rhode Island, because of our we have pretty strong gun regulations. We rank 49th highest in the country in terms of gun deaths. You would repeal those laws. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like I would try. I mean, again, I don't think that the governor has the power to just sign his signature and get rid of all the gun laws, right? But yeah, I mean, I think that it's ridiculous to be controlling the weapons that people choose to arm themselves. I have a friend, his name's Maj Toure. He runs an organization called Black Guns Matter, right? And he goes into inner cities He trains inner city communities on how to use guns, how to exercise their gun rights legally in the area that they're in, right? And this is the kind of thing that we should really be encouraging, right? Because look, guns are not for hunting. Guns are not for like fun. They're for self-defense, right? And MSNBC, the biggest gun grabbing organization ever, right? Like while Venezuelans were being run over by Humvees, right? I don't know if you remember that a couple of years ago. Venezuelans were being run over by Humvees, right? And the person literally asked the other anchor on NBC, he was like, how is this possible? Like, how did Venezuela devolve into this? And he said, well, they took away their guns in 2008. And he's like, so these people have no way to defend themselves. And then some people will say, well, look, you think you're going to win a war against the U.S. government? No, but an armed society makes it so that nobody can ever do that kind of stuff, right? Armed resistance turns I'm just doing my job into screw this job, right? It will never happen as long as we're armed. And as soon as you start taking away the guns, you'll have people going to jail for Facebook posts like they do in England, like they do in Australia, right? There are people in jail right now because they posted silly things on Facebook. There's a video in Australia of a wife and a mother being taken out of her home because she made a Facebook event simply to protest the lockdowns during COVID. A cop went in, took all of the computers in the house, put her in handcuffs in front of her children just because she was trying to organize a protest. That country doesn't have any guns, right? So no, guns exist. There's no way around it. If you try to take guns away from people, what you're saying is that the government should have control over all the guns, right? And then that creates a real lopsided society. So no, I will never support that kind of stuff.
Elijah, we're pretty much out of time. Anything you'd want to add at this point?
Guys, you're not going to waste your vote by voting your conscience. If you do have any questions, you can go to my website, Eli, that's ELI, the number 4, RI.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Elijah John, that's Jon. And, Facebook, Elijah Gizzarelli for governor. I hope that we can break this two-party system that has a lock over this country, but also over Rhode Island. And I hope that you join me and vote for the only veteran in the race, a veteran that brings common sense to the table. And yeah.
Well, Elijah, good luck tonight in the debate, and good luck in the rest of the campaign.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you. All righty. And we appreciate Elijah for taking the time to join us today. If you missed any portion of this interview, you can find it on whatsupnoop.com. People might wonder why I pop on, pop off. Sometimes it's easier for just two people to talk rather than three. It's also easier for viewers to focus on just two people rather than jumping around here. So Frank and I kind of tag team these, and I jump in as I see comments, your comments, as well as I come up with some questions that Frank might have as well. All right, my friend.
Very good. Well, thank you, Ryan. I want these candidates to be able to have the opportunity to present themselves. And there you go. What do you got? What do you got up there?
Poor judgment.
Oh, poor judgment. Oh, wow. I have to go and get a poor judgment hat.
Yeah.
One of my favorite places.
It is. It's a good spot. They should sponsor this.
Yeah. Well, we should approach him.
Yes. Yes. All the interviews are available as videos and podcasts available on whatsupnoop.com. And the schedule, we have so many interviews coming up. Go visit it there. Sign up for our newsletter and you will never miss an interview, anything that we're doing. So we have some big interviews coming up as well. Mr. Prosnitz, thanks.
Well, thank you. And we have the Attorney General tomorrow afternoon.
We do. We will chat with him then. On behalf of Frank Prosnitz and all of us here at What's Up Noop, we want to thank Elijah for taking time out of his day to talk to us about his campaign. Again, for more information, whatsupnoop.com. Thanks for watching.